All right. We are back here on, on Wrestling Tonight.
Get that one out.
I am your host, Mad Dog Butch. And joining me is the Wyndham to my Rotundo. None other than Brace Beemer himself.
Yeah.
Now, tonight we are going to be discussing, recapping, reminiscing about the quote granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania #1. But and we were supposed to do this last week, but it got postponed. And when I postponed it, I did not realize that today is a very important date in wrestling.
Yes, it is.
Without this date or without this event happening on this date, we may not have had WrestleMania at all. So here we go.
Is the main event. It is for the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Championship, scheduled for one fall with a 1-hour time limit. Introducing first the challenger from Venice Beach, California, weighing 303 pounds, the incredible Hulk Hogan.
The crowd wasn't into him at all.
Nah,
From Tehran,
just a regular mid-carder.
weighing 258 pounds, the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, the Iron Sheik.
It's a guy that doesn't get credit for being the heel that he was.
No, he does not. But anyway, so yeah, today is the 35th anniversary of the day that Hulkamania started, even though technically it started in the AWA.
Oh, yeah.
But we could say, I mean, really, that was the launching point for Hulk Hogan, for WWF, for Vince McMahon,
Oh, yeah, big time.
and for what we're going to discuss today, WrestleMania.
So this was 1984,
Yeah.
January 23rd, 1984, that
Correct.
Hogan won the belt from the Iron
Yes.
Sheik.
Yes. So, without further ado, though, let's get into our review of WrestleMania. I had not watched this in a while. I don't know how many times I have watched it in my lifetime. I remember going to the store and renting it. First of all, I remember that night sitting by my radio, waiting for the results.
Yeah.
And, some of the results kind of surprised me. I mean, looking back now, they don't. But at the time, as a 13-year-old kid, some of the results kind of surprised me. This was also Vince McMahon's gone on record. I should just preface this by saying that Vince McMahon's gone on record to talk about what a gamble this was. Basically, if this would not have been successful, Vince claims that could have been the end.
Yeah, and financed the Crockett's in, oh gosh, my mind's going blank. Mid-Atlantic. Jim Crockett, the Crockett family owned Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. Vince McMahon had taken the time slot for Georgia Championship Wrestling on WTBS, and it wasn't working out very well for the WWF and Vince McMahon on WTBS. So they wound up selling that time slot to Jim Crockett, Crockett Promotions, and that's how, your Dusty Rhodes, Magnum TAs, what everybody considers now NWA or WCW, that's how they got started on
Right.
WTBS, and that was for $1 million. And it's also been said that $1 million helped finance WrestleMania.
One.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get right into it. WrestleMania starts off with quick introduction by Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura, who will be the announcers for it throughout the night. Now, I should say this too. I'm not going to mention this every time, but for some reason, I mean, one thing watching it again, you could really tell the production values were not quite there yet.
Yeah.
It was almost like they just wanted to be able to give Lord Alfred Hayes a spot because in every match, Gorilla and Ventura would throw it to Lord Alfred, who was kind of standing in the way. He was standing in the way because when people would be heading towards the ring, he'd be having to get out of the way. I think he got bumped into a couple times. Some people like saw him and would say something into the microphone, but then he would just quickly throw it to Mean Gene, who had like done pre-recorded interviews.
Yeah.
So we get Lord Alfred.
I like the Lord Alfred there. I made a note of that where he was standing, and you could see the wrestlers coming, entering and leaving the ringside area. I thought that was cool.
No, I thought it was cool, but
Yeah.
but it seems like they would have just had him conduct the interviews right there, or maybe Mean Gene conduct the interviews right there, just going into it.
Well, yeah, but they
'Cause-
do
'cause
tape
it
them
just
in case they're screwed up.
Well, I know, but it just seemed odd, like watching it now.
Yeah.
Seeing him just throw it to a pre-recorded interview with Mean Gene.
Yeah.
So anyway, he throws it to Mean Gene. He does an interview with Tito Santana and the Executioner, and the Executioner claims that he will unmask, or he will reveal himself. It's a masked wrestler. He claims that he will reveal himself if he beats Tito Santana. We know now that this was Playboy Buddy Rose,
Right.
who was probably wrestling in Portland at the time.
Well, at the time he was in the WWF because he had, I think every match I'd seen him in, he'd lost. So they put a mask on him, and they were going to.
I thought that was
with him.
after though. I didn't think he came back as a jobber until after that.
He was in there before, and I don't think he ever won a match that I saw.
Well, I don't remember him really winning a match after.
Right.
But that was after his AWA stint as champion. But
Yeah, he was in there. He was in there before. He wasn't on TV a lot.
okay.
Probably maybe 4 aired matches, maybe, if that.
Then how long before? I don't want to waste too much time talking about Playboy Buddy Rose, but
He
how
was
long?
he was great.
No,
man.
he was, and everywhere else that he went, he was very successful. But WWF just decided not to really do anything with him for whatever reason. But he had that big run in Portland before that.
Oh, a huge run. He was the guy.
So I'm wondering how long before that was. But anyway, so we have the match with him and Tito Santana. And I should mention this. This was the only WrestleMania that had preliminary or squash or jobber matches on it.
Yeah.
So Tito Santana ends up winning it with the figure 4 leg lock.
Yeah. I took some notes on all the matches that I went through. First, the commentators with Monsoon and Ventura. For my money, that's my favorite team, play-by-play and color commentary team of all time. I like them. Yeah, I like them better than Ventura and McMahon, or McMahon and Heenan, and then any other combination in any other area too. I thought those two were great together.
I can appreciate Gorilla Monsoon more now, listening to him. I was not a huge fan of his back then. Probably because of his delivery. I mean, his delivery was just not. I mean, he would rarely get excited about anything. But
and he'd foreshadow a lot.
Which was the yeah. I mean, no, he was fantastic. I mean, don't get me wrong, but for the time, I didn't really appreciate him. I probably liked the Ventura McMahon team better, just because McMahon was such a shill for the good guys. Yeah. It was hilarious.
And that's why I like Gorilla, because he would put the bad guys over. Like the Hart, like Bret Hart would be in there fighting somebody because he loved Bret Hart, and you could tell, you know?
Yeah,
and
there were certain guys that were like on the undercard or the mid card that you could tell that he liked, and would put him over. And I mean, there was even like jobbers that he would put over.
Yeah.
I mean,
Charlie Fulton.
So, yeah, there was a ton of them. Barry O.
The Duke of Dorchester and Boston Gardens.
Yeah. All right, so anyway, so Tito ends up winning it with the figure four. Just pretty much a basic match. Nothing.
You know what though? I forgot how good his drop kicks were.
Tito's.
Yeah.
See, I should say this about Tito. I hated Tito. I believe I hated Tito. At
Yeah,
this
you
time.
did.
And I don't know why, but I ended up becoming a fan of his later on. I don't know if it was just because it seems like, I mean, even though he would like soften his opponent up with the flying forearm, I think I just didn't like it that he won with the figure four because there was too many guys that were winning. I mean, obviously he was going into the feud with Greg the Hammer Valentine, or already involved in a feud with Greg the Hammer Valentine. But I think that was a big part of it for whatever reason. In my 13-year-old mind, I thought too many guys won with the figure four, and I didn't think Tito Santana should be winning with it.
Yeah, he used to win with the flying forearm.
Later on.
Or as Ventura would call it, the flying burrito.
Right. And then later on, he went back to that, and that's when I started to appreciate him again.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll get into more Tito later because he shows up again. That's it for the Executioner. I don't think we ever see him again in WWF.
Yeah, it was. I had a couple notes on the Executioner. It looked like it, because normally for Buddy Rose, who was the Executioner, he'd have Buddy on one boot and then Rose on the other. It was just like a piece of tape down each side of the boot on the outside covering it.
I didn't notice that part.
Did you see how thin he was?
Yeah, that's what I was like,
man.
because I started watching it and I knew it was Buddy Rose, but when I started watching it, I was like, I had to rethink it. I was like, is that Buddy Rose?
Yeah, because it sounded just like
didn't
him.
even look like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, body-wise. Like,
Right,
I was used to the bigger Buddy Rose, but
Yeah. And the word I wrote down was svelte.
yeah, he did. All right, let's go to our next match, which is, well, we get an interview with SD Jones.
Nice.
And King Kong Bundy with Jimmy Hart. So obviously that leads to the next match, which is King Kong Bundy versus SD Jones. Now, this match became somewhat controversial because they claimed that Bundy beat SD in 9 seconds.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
But it was actually more like, what,
23
some
seconds.
seconds? Yeah, 23 seconds. And now I've heard that the story was, and you could tell, I think SD, like Bundy pushed them back. I think he was just supposed to go right into the turnbuckles and then take the avalanche and then into the splash. Well, SD like went in like too hard or whatever, ended up falling down. So Bundy had to wait till he stood back up. Then he gives him the avalanche. So I think that's what caused it. And I have read that SD messed that up. SD, even though he didn't have the most successful career in the WWF, he was still kind of a name at that time. He was also involved with, Andre had already gotten his haircut before WrestleMania I, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, yeah, he was actually Andre's tag team partner during that match. I had forgot about that. But
SD Jones was a carpenter, man. He was a good worker. You'd see him a lot like on primetime wrestling and, even on the their weekend shows or syndicated shows.
Yeah.
You'd see him every once in a while, but he would get to wrestle and you'd see more of him like on the primetime shows.
Yeah. I remember when Kurt Hennig first showed up, he had like a 15-minute match with SD on like primetime wrestling. Yeah. Like when he first showed up in WWF. But,
he's kind of like the Johnny Rods, You get the new guy in there and let him work with one of those guys and see what they're made of, see what they can do.
So King Kong Bundy was managed by Jimmy Hart at this point. At some point between WrestleMania 1 and WrestleMania 2, that switches and Bobby the Brain Heenan becomes King Kong Bundy's manager.
Yeah.
King Kong Bundy gets a huge push, ends up being the main event at WrestleMania 2 in the cage match with Hulk Hogan, which we will cover at some point, WrestleMania 2 also. But any words on King Kong Bundy before we move along?
Well, I did notice in the match there wasn't the old 5 count, so he must have started doing that later.
Right, yeah, I was kind of expecting that too.
Yeah,
and didn't do
especially with the 9-second job.
Right. Yeah.
And do you know what? Because Monsoon said it was a record and it beat the old record of 23 seconds. Do you know what the old record was?
Was it Was it Bruno beating superstar Billy Graham?
Close. It was Bruno and Rogers
Oh, okay.
when he beat him with the bear hug in 23 seconds to win the then WWF.
Okay, that was
world
Rogers.
title.
I was thinking that was
Yeah,
Graham.
yeah, because he said that, and it took me a minute to
okay.
think about,
Yeah.
but they never said what the record was. So
Did you happen to look up to see what the record is now?
no,
Because there's been a couple matches where it might be Kane and Daniel Bryan or something now, or Sheamus and Daniel Bryan. I remember Kane and I don't know. I'll have to look that up. We'll talk about that later.
yeah, well, it's probably so bastardized now that
Yeah. Yeah. So then we move on to the next match, which is we get interviews backstage with Matt Bourne and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Before he was the Dragon, he was just Ricky Steamboat. And then we get a match with these two, and Ricky the Dragon beats him with the flying body press. Matt Bourne Matt Bourne was gone right after that.
Right.
I mean, I don't remember Bourne being in there before. Was he? Or was he one that they just brought in for?
I think they just
for
brought him
WrestleMania?
in for that.
Okay.
If I'm remembering right, because I don't remember.
I don't remember
being
him in there
earlier.
before or after. And then he went to he went throughout the territories, and then eventually 5 years later or so, he comes back as Doink the Clown.
Yeah, that was great.
But Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Ricky Steamboat gets a pretty big push at the time after this. Well, actually, no, because WrestleMania II, he just, I think he just wrestled Hercules, and it was just kind of like a throwaway match.
Yeah.
But he was still like a pretty big baby face at that time. Snuka was gone or on the back burner at that time.
Yeah, well, they had used
So they were
Snuka to
pushing.
try and get Steamboat over before
Right.
WrestleMania's. What do they call him? The Honolulu, the Hawaii Connection, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I can't
something
remember the name of them.
Yeah, I don't either. But was it like the Polynesian or something? I don't know. But anyway, Ricky Steamboat eventually gets to WrestleMania 3 and wins the Intercontinental belt. But this was like when he was fresh in there.
Well, this was a good match, I thought.
I did too. I mean, it wasn't like very long, but it was a
Right.
decent match. I mean, actually, well, besides the SD and Bundy, but I mean, even the Rose and Santana was a good match to start off with.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me, and it wasn't until, going into this third match here, that nobody had entrance music yet. And I just,
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I'm used to watch, because I watch a bunch of the old stuff now, but it's just weird having the WrestleMania, the card built like a normal, like a normal card where they're building up to the main event.
Mm-hmm.
That's how this whole card was laid out. No entrance music. And I just,
Right.
I just thought, wow,
Yeah.
my, how times have changed.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I mean, even the way that the matches are, which we'll talk about too. So then let's get into our next match. Then we have David Sammartino versus Brutus Beefcake, pre-Barber days. Brutus Beefcake's manager was Johnny Valiant. David Sammartino, of course, comes out with his father, Bruno Sammartino. Now, after I had watched all the matches and I thought about it, from a work standpoint, I think this might have been the best match.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was, and I'm not a fan of Beefcake at all. I don't think he was ever a great wrestler. I mean, I think he was better as a heel.
Oh,
He worked
definitely.
better as a heel.
Yeah.
As a babyface. So you can get away with a little bit more not being so great as a heel,
Yeah,
in my
right.
opinion. But David Sammartino, I mean, it had been so long since I'd seen that match or any match with him in it. It really surprised me. Like, I mean,
I had the same note. It's better than I remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was a good match. I mean, it was a good, and much like the first two matches that,
I should mention it ends in a double disqualification.
Yeah, yeah. But I was just surprised it was as better than I remembered it. It was a good, like, there was a lot of mat wrestling in the first the first three matches, which wouldn't be uncommon during the time. And that's what a lot of people miss about, the product that they're putting out today is the lack of the mat wrestling.
Right.
And, we got a lot of that the first one. And this one, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, before we go, did you happen to catch that the first two matches, or not the first two, aside from the Bundy one, like Matt Bourne was from Portland and Buddy Rose was from Portland. When I say they're from Portland, that means the Portland wrestling area out there in the Portland territory.
Yeah,
And
that's why I was asking you if Rose came directly from Portland, because I don't remember him.
But it was just odd, not odd, and I know it was done on purpose that you put the two Portland guys out there because they wanted to expand, get their product, whatever the WWF was offering, out in the Portland. So they get two of the biggest names out there and put them on the undercard, and they both lose.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, but hey, whatever. I mean, it got him on the show, the big show, whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, that's why I was asking, because I know Buddy was huge in Portland, and I know Bourne had a great run in Portland too. So I was thinking about that. I was like, man, I wonder if they just brought both of these guys in just to do the job. For whatever reason. But, you don't know that it's Buddy Rose. I mean, people didn't know that it was Buddy Rose.
Right.
So that one doesn't really count.
But I give the people out in Portland probably did, which is kind of what mattered at that point,
Yeah, maybe.
And another note I made is all of the referees for WrestleMania were from the New York State Athletic Commission.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, in New York. And this goes back, to the old territory days. But in New York, you had to be licensed to be a referee, as you did in a lot of other states. But when you wrestled in New York, kind of like how the MMA groups, UFC and whoever, when they have a card somewhere, the referees are from the athletic commission on that state.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when they got rid of that, but they just did that to make sure they got their tax money basically from everybody wanting to be a referee from the WWF, to keep the little government function going.
Yeah, that's one thing I didn't really pay attention to was the referees. But I mean that was not the case for the main event though, because it was Pat Patterson and Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
But back to David. He I think he stuck around for a short time after that. Never really accomplished much. Had kind of a tumultuous relationship with his dad for different reasons. I will say this, when I was watching this, when they were walking out, I mean, David was never going to live up to what Bruno Sammartino did. There was no possible way.
Nobody could.
So when I was watching it, I was thinking, man, Adrian Adonis was still doing the leather gimmick at the time. So I was thinking
the quasi biker
that if he would have kept doing that and David would have stuck around to spruce David up and give him more of a gimmick, I wonder if they would have offered the homosexual gimmick to him instead, and how would that have gone over with Bruno?
Yeah, it probably wouldn't have. Well, it's good. Like Bruno and his son David Sammartino, they had a misunderstanding for a while. They did make up, and they were on great terms for years before Bruno's passing last year. So. Oh,
okay. I didn't realize that. One other thing I will say, David was around in the WWF, but he is one of. I mean, I'm sure this has happened before, but he is one of the most high-profile people to. I don't know if he had been asking for his release and they weren't going to give it to him. But he was supposed to win a match against, I believe it was Ron Shaw, and he had Ron Shaw get him in a bear hug somewhere throughout the match, and he gave up. And it was it might not have been Ron Shaw, but you could tell that
Ron Shaw, it probably was.
You could tell that everybody who was confused, that guy, if it was Ron Shaw, he was mad. He even took a couple shots at him because I don't think he knew what was going on. he probably thought he was going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
But, David Samart, you could probably get away with that. Well, no, you couldn't get away with it now because you'd be having to tap out. So everybody could see it. But, David Sammartino was like yelling. The referee was not going to call it because back then you just gave up.
Right.
But, but he was like screaming and yelling it loud enough where the referee had no choice but to end the match.
Huh.
But yeah, that match is on YouTube if you can find it. I believe it's Ron Shaw. But if not, just look up David Sammartino's last match in the WWF. And then David shows up years later in WCW.
Oh, and he was ripped too.
Well, that's what I was going to
completely.
say. Ripped. And he had some good matches on there. I got to say, he had some decent matches on there. I was kind of hoping he would have stuck around. But they wouldn't have done anything with him anyway. They wouldn't have known how to use him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was ripped, and that was part of the issue with him and Bruno, actually, because Bruno thought he was on steroids, which he probably was. But so the next match is for the Intercontinental title. That was held by Greg the Hammer Valentine with Jimmy Hart.
The mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart.
And that was against the Junkyard Dog.
JYD.
Now, this is one of the matches that I mentioned in the beginning that I was kind of surprised about. I remember like thinking for sure that Junkyard Dog was going to win the Intercontinental title from Greg the Hammer Valentine at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I thought he would too back then. How could you not?
Yeah,
Dog was over.
Yeah. He came in so popular, but Greg the Hammer Valentine pins him with his feet on the ropes. And then, like I said, Tito Santana comes in. The referee restarts the match, and then it ends up a disqualification.
That was the count out, right? Where Valentine just acted like he was going to leave and then didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So they never really got a restart to the match. I didn't like the finish of that. I mean, I see why they did it to protect Valentine and protect Junkyard Dog, because you don't really they didn't want the belt to change then.
Right.
And then they didn't want Junkyard Dog to lose because he was arguably the second most popular guy behind Hogan.
Right.
Maybe Snuka,
Yeah.
But
it continued.
He was right up there.
But it also continued the feud with Tito Santana and Greg the Hammer Valentine. And Tito Santana would eventually go on to beat Valentine for the Intercontinental belt. And
yeah.
I think they went back and forth. By the time WrestleMania 2 comes around, man, I don't know where Tito was. I mean, I'm sure Tito was on it, but I don't remember. Was he just in the Battle Royal?
Maybe.
I think he might have just been in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2. And Greg the Hammer Valentine was tag team champions with Brutus Barber Beefcake, or Brutus Beefcake at that point. So now Junkyard Dog, he comes in. Now, he hadn't been in there very long either, but he had just come in off the super hot run that he had in Mid-South Wrestling.
Yeah.
Like the biggest, possibly one of the biggest, if not the biggest stars that they had.
Probably the biggest star that they've ever had in that part of the country.
Yeah. I mean,
except for maybe Stone Cold.
Yeah.
Or Hogan.
Yeah.
Hogan didn't even work. It took a little while to get him over there.
Yeah.
But Dog he sold so many tickets. He was over like Rover.
Yeah. So I believe, I thought about it. And, he wins the match by countout, but I think he would go on to lose like his next, I think he was gone after WrestleMania 3, but I don't think he ever won a match. I mean, besides that one by countout, but he never won a match at WrestleMania. If you really think about his WWF career, I mean, even though he was popular, I mean, he didn't need a belt to be over, but he really didn't do a whole lot.
No, and as far as like titles and whatnot, I mean, he had a couple good feuds, but
then you hear guys nowadays talk about what a crappy worker he was to the point where Terry Funk wanted to leave. Honky Tonk Man has been very vocal about hating to work with him also.
I know, but at the same time, that guy could sell. I mean, I thought he was an awesome seller. And even looking back on it, like, especially now looking back, that guy could sell.
I agree.
His punches
I agree with you, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, his punches were solid.
Yeah.
His punches look great. His headbutts. I mean, he didn't do a whole lot. You know, you weren't going to get
But you didn't have to.
Right.
You didn't have to do that back then. I mean, look at Hogan. Hogan did what he had to do. And you know, if you can, I mean, look at Hacksaw Jim Duggan. His run in WWF.
Yeah, Hogan was a great worker as far as I'm concerned. I think the word worker gets misplaced a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I was just throwing that out there because,
Yeah.
you know, Junkyard Dog gets kind of a bad rap.
And a lot of that is more toward the end of his career, too. And people would say he couldn't work anyway, which is, you know, his whole run. But, yeah, at the end of his career, he was kind of, he was just slow, didn't take care of himself as much.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not necessarily true either because, some of the matches that he had in Mid-South, I mean, especially like the feud that he had with Butch Reed, those matches were actually pretty great.
Right, I agree, yeah.
But anyway, so then we move on to...
Oh, that was the first match where they had music, where somebody came into music.
Okay, I don't know which version you watched, but the one that I watched, they had him coming in to grab them cakes.
Yeah, it was like overlaid.
Yeah.
God, I
which
hate
sucked.
that.
Yeah, I know, because he would have still been coming into Another One Bites the Dust by Queen at that point.
Yeah.
But you know.
And to me, that took a lot away from the wrestler's character, you know, because they were so tied to that, like Hogan with
Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
It was so much better than.
I mean, I can understand why they did it.
Sure, yeah.
But I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well,
nothing you can do about it, you know. It's just they didn't want to pay the money for the licensing
yeah.
for the songs.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, actually, Hogan was going to get that lame Hulk Hogan's theme song before Wyndham and Rotundo left because they were the ones that were supposed to have Real American.
Right.
And then when they left, then Hogan got it. And I mean, that worked for Hogan. I mean, that was still a decent song.
Well, it wound up being his song, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Much better than that one. That was just, it was just musical, and then kids were just chanting Hulk, or people were just chanting Hulk through the whole thing. And I think that was also the theme for the beginning of the Hulk Hogan Rock and Wrestling cartoon.
The cartoon. Yeah. That's exactly where. Yeah. Hey, quick note, Mad Dog. We're so far after 5 matches.
Yeah.
I made a note that there hasn't been any heat. There's been no like big comebacks or really any big time heat. When I say that, you know, like the bad guy just really beating the tar out of the good guy, and it looks like the good guy is gonna be dead, you know, and then he makes a comeback. Nothing really get the crowd like all upset, and that's just the way they used to build the card. So I just thought that was a nice note, contrasting how they put wrestling cards together now as opposed to back in 1985.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was watching it also, I was thinking, man, you know, like these matches just would not fly today. I mean, not that they weren't well worked, but it wasn't just I mean, you can definitely tell the difference between what they do now. You could tell that these matches were not totally scripted out before they went to the ring.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. I mean, and a couple of them, you know, there's like big examples of.
Yeah, well, they actually wrestled too, so that was a huge difference as well.
Yeah, but I just don't think that if you just like presented this card out of the blue to a modern audience, I don't think it would work.
Well, maybe not. They'd have to be trained to watch that type of wrestling, like they're trained to watch the WWE now, like that style, you know?
Yeah. So speaking of Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo, the next match is the tag team title match with Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov with Classy Freddie Blassie again, and they were the champions. Oh no, I'm sorry, they were the challengers to Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo with Captain Lou Albano,
the U.S. Express,
the tag team champions, and that match ended when Iron Sheik hit Barry Windham over the head with Fred Blassie's cane. And I believe Volkov got the pin then. Windham and Rotundo were up there in popularity too. I would say at that point they were you could make a case for them being you know, real close to Hogan.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You know, I made a note on that. That this was the first match that there was really like a buzz in the crowd where you could just, I say buzz in the crowd where you could just, the decibel levels are up. It's just kind of like a murmur. People are just talkative. They're getting ready. They want to see some crap going down. And this was the first match that, we're getting into the meat of the card. I don't think they really got into the Valentine and JYD all that much.
I don't think so either.
And maybe toward the end they did, and which is a good job by Valentine and Junkyard Dog.
Yeah.
They have a different style, so it's going to take that long. Mm-hmm. But this was the first one they're ready, and they're throwing all the crap at Sheik and Volkov at the beginning.
Oh,
and
yeah.
when Volkov did the Russian national anthem.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, just that whole thing. I mean, for that time, just that gimmick and Freddie Blassie with them.
Yeah.
I mean, and singing the Russian national anthem. And
that was a long version, too.
Yeah, yeah. And then Iron Sheik saying what he always used to say on the microphone, going against the All-American boys and all that. I mean, it was just, you just had the built-in heat there anyway. But, I mean, actually, this match, I mean, it was shorter than what I remember, but it was actually a decent match, too.
Yeah, 60-minute time limit. It's a championship match. And that was another difference where
right.
The match before the Intercontinental title match between Valentine and Dog, it was 60 minutes. All the others were 20 minutes, they announced.
Yeah. One thing I will say, I remember, like, when I would be watching wrestling and, if my dad or mom like happened to be around, they'd be like 60-minute time limit, thinking that meant the match had to go 60 minutes. They'd be like, we're not watching this for 60 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, one of the, I noticed there was a point in the match where Iron Sheik just gave Mike Rotundo a backdrop. You don't see backdrops a lot on TV anymore. Like whenever I try and watch wrestling, it doesn't seem like they do them a lot.
No, and they used to be in every match.
Yeah, and they used to overdo them, but the backdrop was just so perfect. It was beautiful. It was like a work of art. So just seeing how they executed it.
I caught that as well. I didn't take note of it, but Mike Rotundo, there's been like a couple times where that's happened. Much later on when he was in WCW, I remember he gave Brad Armstrong a suplex like into the ring, and it was just a normal vertical suplex, and I remember getting goosebumps watching it.
Yeah,
it
and
was
we did
just
it at the same time and not even
perfect.
watching it together.
Yeah, because I remember we talked about it after,
Yeah.
and it was like, how is that normal vertical suplex that we see constantly?
Yeah.
So good. It was just like executed so perfectly.
Yeah.
And Mike Rotundo's another guy that doesn't get a lot of credit, I don't think.
Oh man. Well, he's got a son in the WWE right now.
He's got two in the WWE right now.
Okay, two of them?
He's got Bo Dallas and
Wyatt.
yeah, Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh.
All right. So the next match was Andre the Giant versus Big John Studd with Bobby the Brain Heenan, the $15,000 body slam challenge. And I believe that started out as a lower amount, and then they had to up it to make it seem like the stakes were higher.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah, I don't remember. It might have been like a 1,000 or something, and then they were like, well, let's up it to 1,500 or no. Well, yeah, it was 15,000. I think it might have been like 5,000 or something at one point, and then it went up to 15,000.
Oh, okay.
or 10,000 maybe. I think it was more like 5, and then it went up to like 15. But,
Yeah, probably.
But anyway, this is another match that was just kind of like, oh man. I mean, I've mentioned it. I hate to rag on Big John Studd, and I'm not blaming it on him, but going back and watching his matches now, he just not that he wasn't good. I mean for the time he could do what he did what he had to do, but just he really didn't do anything.
Yeah, he just got so big.
He just did forearms to the back and knees and even the way that he took bumps, like he'd like roll around. I don't know.
Yeah, he could work before, like early 80s, late 70s, He's just too big.
So this match was just kind of like these two going back and forth a little bit. I mean, Andre controlled it a little bit, but then the body slam just comes out of the blue.
Yeah.
Boom. Andre gets the bag of money. Bobby Heenan had been carrying around a duffel bag full of the, quote, $15,000.
Yeah.
Andre gets the money after he body slams Studd, starts throwing it out into the crowd. Heenan comes in, classic heel move, grabs the bag and hightails it back to the back.
That was legit. Like, there was legit money in that bag. And when Heenan grabbed it, did you hear this story?
I probably have, but I probably forgot.
Well,
it sounds familiar. But.
Yeah. At the end of the match, it was, the $15,000 versus Andre. If he didn't win, he was going to retire.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
So he's Andre wins and he's throwing the money, starts to throw the money out to the fans, but it was real money. So Heenan ran in there because that wasn't supposed to happen. Heenan ran in there, and when he stole the money from Andre, that was legit because Andre was going to throw it out, and that wasn't supposed to happen.
Okay. I think I did remember hearing that, but either way, classic heel move on Heenan.
He looked awesome doing it.
He did, and the crowd was hot about that. But,
yeah. It was cool. It was just cool how the crowd could get so hot at just different things. You didn't have to go through 50,000 tables and do a bunch of flips and whatnot. Right. They were just so into the characters they could.
Yeah.
It didn't take a whole lot.
Right. Now, so Big John Studd, the Aftermath, he was still kind of like a big name. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Him and Bundy became a tag team, and then that's what kind of led to eventually Bundy getting the title shot in the cage at WrestleMania II. But I don't remember. Oh, yeah, because Big John Studd was also in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania II.
Right.
Because him and Refrigerator Perry had their little beef. Or wait, was it Perry or was it Bill Fralick?
That was WrestleMania II. That was Perry.
Okay. Yeah, because I think somebody threw somebody out, and then
because Fralick was in it.
Yeah, I couldn't remember like who the beef was with Studd, who had the beef, but
Bill Fralick was a pro football player, by the way.
Yeah, he just passed away. What, a month ago? Or
I didn't know that.
A couple months ago. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was one guy. Well, we'll talk about WrestleMania 2 in some other show, so I don't want to get all into it. But let's move on to the next match, which is the women's title match. Wendy Richter with Cyndi Lauper against Leilani Kai with the Fabulous Moolah. And Leilani Kai was actually the champion going into this match.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good match. Overall, for a women's match at that time, I thought it was pretty good.
It wasn't a bad match. The ending got botched,
which
was a roll through. Leilani Kai gave Richter the body press, and she rolled through it. I mean, we've seen that happen a lot of times, but that's what happened. Now, Cyndi Lauper and Wendy Richter deserve a lot of credit for building towards WrestleMania themselves. And Cindy's manager, Dave Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
The whole build up to WrestleMania was really involved Cyndi Lauper and MTV, and there was like some things that happened on there.
The war to settle the score.
It. Yeah, that's even what brought Mr. T into the fold.
Right.
An angle that they were doing, and Mr. T just happened to be in the audience and ended up jumping into the ring and going after Piper. So anyway, yeah. So Fabulous Moolah was like I said, the manager of Leilani Kai. Now I think at that point Moolah was probably pretty much going to be done. I think they were just going to use her as a manager,
right?
Because they would bring in the Woman of the Week to take on Wendy Richter, managed by Fabulous Moolah. They had that. There was like a few of them, but I remember eventually they had Mad Maxine, the big chick with the green mohawk,
right?
And then eventually they brought in the Spider Lady, which I'm kind of fuzzy on what happened, but didn't Richter's head get too big, and she didn't want to lose the belt, so they ended up putting Moolah in the Spider Lady costume.
Yeah,
and it was a screw job.
Moolah really pinned Richter.
Yeah,
wasn't even really. You could call it a screw job, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it was a screw job finish years before the Montreal screw job.
Right.
And you could tell, like watching it, Richter was like, wondering what was going on. I mean, she had to know it was Moolah. You would think she had to know it was Moolah. Under,
sure.
Under the thing, but
Yeah.
But the story goes that she didn't know until Moolah got out there. So Moolah ends up winning the belt, and then I think she held it for a little while after that. Richter was gone after that, and Richter never did show back up. She's been inducted into the Hall of Fame though, right?
I don't believe so.
It seems like she has.
She might be.
I could be wrong, but
well, Richter wins the title there, and that was a semi-main event match. The women right before the main event.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's get into the main event. First of all, we have the introductions of the stars that were always a part of WrestleMania. This definitely set the tone for it. We had Billy Martin come in as the ring announcer, the guest ring announcer. Then you had Liberace come into the ring with the Rockettes. What was he, the timekeeper, I think?
Yeah, guest timekeeper.
And he had the little bell, and him and the Rockettes danced around in the ring for a little while.
Liberace with the little bell.
And then you had Muhammad Ali, who was the special guest referee, along with Pat Patterson, who was also the referee for the main event. So the main event, obviously, was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, along with their second Jimmy Superfly Snuka, against Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff, along with Cowboy Bob Orton.
Yeah.
Now, watching this match again, I mean, it was fine for what it was. It looked like Mr. T was blown up. Watching it again, I never really noticed this until watching it. Mr. T kind of came in there, threw people around a little bit, got thrown around a little bit, but he looked like he got blown up pretty quick.
I'll bet he was, because that's easy to do. I mean, it has nothing to do with how good of a shape you're in physically, cardio, or anything else. It's just nerves and being able to breathe right. I mean, it's like that for anything.
Now after WrestleMania 1, leading up to WrestleMania 2, they did the Bob Orton boxing gimmick, which led to the boxing match with I think they did it on Saturday Night's Main Event. But the story is that after the match, Mr. T was about dead. After the boxing match with Bob Orton, Mr. T was about dead backstage. They had an oxygen tank on him, and Cowboy Bob Orton comes walking by, and he's like, Mr. T's like, hey Bob, hey. He's like, you need some of this? And Bob Orton has a cigarette in one hand and a beer in the other one. He's like, no, I'm good. Keeps going.
Well, yeah, I could see where, T would get gas. That's quite an environment to be thrust into like that,
Yeah. I mean, not ever having been in front of a crowd. And I'm sure they worked every part of the match out as much as they could before.
Oh, yeah.
But going into that environment, I mean, that, I don't care who you are. That's gotta, that's gotta take your breath away even before you get involved in, start in a wrestling match.
You'd be a 20-year vet and going into that,
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of veterans just kind of crap the bed,
Yeah, exactly.
You get into something like that. That's big.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, we can look at it this way, but I mean, at the time, I never really had any problem with it. I mean, Mr. T was fine to bring in every now and then and do what he had to do. But, I was never a huge fan of bringing in the celebrities.
Me neither.
To wrestle, because it just, I mean, going back to 1985, I mean, Mr. T was a huge name and a huge star at that time. I mean, he was on the A-Team coming off of the Rocky movie. So there's no denying that just everybody together, just, who knows if all the parts were not there, if it would have worked out the way that it did.
I didn't think they needed all the celebrities they had.
Well, they probably
didn't. It was going to work, Well,
they definitely didn't.
They could have just had Hogan and Piper, and it would have worked.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean,
that was hot, man.
It's possible. I mean, it was. It was, and actually leading up to that, we had the war to settle the score,
Right.
which was before, and the story is now, at least from Piper, is that they wanted Hogan to just beat him clean, and he refused, and then that led to WrestleMania, which still it was not a clean victory, quote
Right.
clean victory.
Yeah.
I don't think Hogan ever really got a clean victory over Piper, not that I remember. Because
Not
even
me neither.
Even years later, when Piper came back to WCW, Hogan might have got one eventually on him there, but because Piper beat Hogan clean a couple times.
Yeah, with the sleeper hold.
WCW, yeah.
What would you think about the match overall?
I mean, it was okay. I mean, for the time, it was fine.
Yeah.
Mr. T didn't look horrible. I mean, that's the only thing that I noticed is that he looked like he was blown up pretty quickly. But just to go over the finish of the match, if anybody doesn't know, what was it? Paul Orndorff was holding. Who was he holding? T or Hogan?
Yeah, he was holding. He was holding.
I think it was Hogan, right?
Yeah.
So Bob Orton's going to come off the top rope,
Yep.
hit Hogan with the cast. Hogan gets out of the way, hits Orndorff, leading to the pin. So
Yeah, no leg drop.
right, yeah, exactly, no leg drop. Orndorff and Piper kind of leave, or not Orndorff, Orton and Piper kind of leave Orndorff in the ring. Mr. T goes over and tries to help him out. He kind of wakes up and leaves, but that turns Paul Orndorff into a babyface. And he pretty much had, I think that was, for him, that was not a great thing. Because then you
Right.
go to WrestleMania 2 and he just has some throwaway match with Don Morocco.
Yeah. He was
So-
such a good bad guy.
Yeah, that's what I was
maybe
gonna
the best one they had, I thought, just because of his intensity.
Yeah,
He's an athlete,
Yeah, there's just some guys it doesn't work for.
Right.
Some guys it doesn't work to be a good guy. Some guys it doesn't work to be a bad guy. Paul Orndorff definitely was a heel.
Yeah.
So from there, Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan. Keeps doing the Hulk Hogan stuff. Piper and Orndorff kind of have a feud in the beginning, but then, like I said, by WrestleMania 2, that's pretty much done.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Snuka kind of gets phased out after that.
Oh, yeah.
I think he was still teaming with Steamboat, but then they never really did anything. They couldn't do much with Snuka at that point because of just a couple of years ago, what got revealed was that there was even though, did he get found guilty of that?
Yeah. Just
Right before his death, right?
right before his death, yeah.
So the story is that he had killed his girlfriend.
It was, a girlfriend, whoever he was dating at the time.
Yeah. So, I who knows? I mean, Vince, it sounds like Vince probably would have had to have done something with Snuka.
Yeah.
I mean, Snuka was so popular at that point.
He was their guy before Hogan. I mean, I remember watching him turn good when he was a bad guy in there, He was super popular.
But obviously he couldn't do anything. Vince knew about it, at least knew about the situation.
Yeah.
And then supposedly when they would come and talk to Snuka, he would act like he was a savage that couldn't understand English, and
Yeah.
that's why it went on as long as it did. Now, one other thing that I want to mention, one guy that I was kind of surprised that was not on the card was Magnificent Morocco.
Yeah, really. Because he was a big name in there. Speaking of Snuka, he had tremendous matches with Jimmy Superfly Snuka for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah. He was probably, he was the number one heel in there for a long time before Piper. And actually, Piper has said that Morocco came up to him when he came in there and was like, I gladly pass the torch to you. I am so tired. Because he had been the top heel for so long. He said he was just tired of being the top heel.
Ran like a government mule.
Yeah, exactly. So that was one guy that I was kind of surprised they didn't find a spot for on there. But he still had a decent career in there after a while. I mean,
Yeah.
you didn't have to necessarily be on WrestleMania, but it seems like they would have tried to give him a spot.
Yeah, with the undercard that they had, why not?
Yeah.
But they used the opportunity to get Bundy over, to get Steamboat over.
Right. I mean, I guess they could have had like Morocco versus Santana or something, if they really
Right.
wanted to. But
Yeah.
but that just wasn't the mentality at that point. I mean, later on they get to the point where like I said, there's no more preliminary matches, squash matches, jobber matches, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So anyway, we're getting close to the time here. Anything you wanna say before?
No, not really. Everybody, thanks for listening tonight. And if you had a bad day, hopefully you're having a better night. Take care, everyone.
All right, we will hopefully see everybody next week. Just go to the Butch Blood page, and we will keep you updated. I don't know what the topic is going to be next week, but hopefully we might have a big surprise. But we'll see.
All right.
If not, we'll let you know. Like I said, just keep monitoring the page, and we will see you next time.
Good night, everyone.